Hi, everyone. This is Alexis Boss, and this is your favorite Black Lobbyist podcast. Okay, so today we are going to recap the year, and not just the year personally for me, but this political year. I know I've talked a lot about what's going on this year. I talked about certain bills and also brought on plenty of guests. And so it's one of those situations where I'm like, I think we need to just have a good old recap of what happened this year of 2025 going into now 2026. And so, yeah, just thank y'all so much for being on this journey with me. So let's get into it. Okay, so I think, on episode 14, I had a dear friend of mine, Chris Bruce, the local Black man, come on and talk about a little bit about the election breakdown and how, the voter turnout, also about the No Kings protest and just how 2024 evolved into 2025 and how 2025 is going to look for 2026. And so I kind of want to go based off of that and kind of just talk again about key trends about voter behavior, voter turnout, participation, and just also just the political influence and how the shifts has been happening. And I think, we have seen a lot of shifts happen this year, right? So, of course, in 2024, we had an election year, a presidential election year. And of course, now we are in the President Trump administration. And so we are starting to see ever since the start of January, we had a plethora of executive orders being made to the point where even lobbyists and government affairs officials could not even keep up, right? It was just so many coming in at once. We had the dismantling of DEI, not only just within agencies, but also within corporate functions and corporations, which then in turn, due to that, a lot of people lost their jobs on the corporate side, especially Black women. Black women overwhelmingly were laid off in the beginning of the year or in the first Q1 or quarter of the year. And I think that was in turn by, the hands of DEI and that policy being passed. We saw dismantling of DEI. We saw, a President Trump sending out military troops out into different cities, specifically in DC. I believe also in Texas and California, in different states in the United States, and just the public, I would say, backlash or even support of that. We've seen a lot, and that was only, I believe, 3 months in, maybe. So I feel like a lot has happened. I mean, in the summer of 2025, we had the big, beautiful bill pass, and a lot, and I know I talk about that. I believe in episode 10 or in the earlier episodes, I talk about the breakdown of the big, beautiful bill. Please go back and watch that episode to kind of get more of a high level view of just what that bill entails. But that passed in the summer of 2025. We saw a lot happen, I would say, in Q1 and Q2 of just 2025. And as we have evolved and matured through the year, we also noticed, of course, in Q3 of 2025, we had the government shutdown, which lasted 40 days. And I think, that impacted a lot of people. Again, I say that impacted everyone. It didn't matter your political affiliation. It did not matter your ethnicity or your race. It did not matter your religion. It did not matter whether you voted or not. It impacted everybody. And whether you're and it didn't even involve a socioeconomic status. I think, with everything that has happened this year, we really have to sit back and just think. And I want to be clear, taking personal views and opinions and thoughts out of it. This is not a critique of the administration. This is legitimately facts, right? I'm recanting what happened during this administration, during this year. And those are real things. And so whether you think those were things that you agreed with or disagreed with, that's up for you to decide. I just want to present to you, what happened, right? And realize that and make sure you understand the reality that we are living in. And not we as in only Black and brown people. I mean, we as in everybody, whether you're Black, whether you're white, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, whether you're middle class. It impacts everybody, how this administration or any administration makes decisions, especially on behalf of the everyday American and their lives. And I think we felt that during the holiday season. A lot of people lost their SNAP benefits and government assistance. It impacted a high number of elderly people or the elderly community. It impacted those that are, of course, on a lower socioeconomic status. Um, it also impacted those that I don't even think they realized. I mean, I would say delusionally, they didn't realize that they benefited from SNAP, right? And those that have this mindset, especially in the holiday season, that a person should pick themselves up by the bootstraps or they don't need to rely on government assistance. I think people have to realize we're in a recession, right? Our economy is not in a place where, people are thriving. Um, People are losing their jobs, not only just government workers and federal workers. I mean, everyday people. I know people that are in corporate America and are losing their jobs or being laid off. Um, or the company has to make cuts or budget cuts and can no longer afford to keep certain people on. And so and people are afraid to even leave their jobs if they want to make a change or a growth change, due to the fact that they feel like if they leave, they will be the first one on the chopping block if that company decides to do layoffs, right? I'm getting calls from friends and family where they're terrified and crying because their companies say we have layoffs and they don't know if they're going to have a job tomorrow, right? And it happens that quick. So I think when we sit back and really assess, the reality of the situation that we're in, we can't look at it from a lens or a scope that people are abusing something that honestly, you can't blame people for abusing something that really should have policies laid out to make sure it's not getting abused, right? Do you reprimand the dog because you laid out food in front of him on the floor for him to eat, and then you're mad because he ate the food? Or who's at fault there? It's the person where you laid the food out for the dog. I know that's a weird analogy, but the point is that I think when we look at government assistance, especially in a time where people are in need and people are not thriving and people are losing their jobs, specifically Black women and men at a higher rate than everybody else. We have people who are immigrants or people that are even not immigrants, getting put in ICE detention, they're getting ICE called on them, and they're also impacting their jobs. I mean, we are in a politically, again, strained time. We are in a recession. Our economy is not at its best. Our farmers are also taking a hit where they have to be in bankruptcy because they no longer can afford to even give us the groceries, right? They can't afford to keep their farm and their acres alive. And that also in turn goes into the whole ICE immigration situation, right? Because no one there is tending to those farms. And so again, I just want us, I'm laying this out, right? Again, not as a critique. It's for us to be able to look at the reality of what is happening. And it's not necessarily always putting yourself in other people's shoes, because I know that's maybe hard for a lot of people to do, but it's really just taking a step back out of your own shoes, out of your own household, and just opening your eyes and popping that bubble and opening your eyes to the world that we are living in. And I think if you assess the reality of the world we are currently living in, the America that we are currently living in or shifting into, then that will, I think, allow you to be able to then be, you can then be able to make a unbiased, unemotional, thought-led opinion or thought about something. I think we're so focused on Democrat, Republican, or this or that we have lost the again, I'm going to say the plot, and we are focusing, I think, on the wrong things, when in reality people are being impacted. Everyday people like me. Don't let the cameras fool you and, the glam. And I do look good. Thank you. I didn't say it, but I know I look good. But don't let it fool you and think that, oh, well, you're not impacted. I'm impacted every day by this. My family, my friends are impacted every day by this. And I come on here because I want to be honest. I want to be real. It is not easy. It is not easy to shell out money you don't have in order to be able to then do this, right? Um, I think I mentioned I lost my job, right? I lost my job in the beginning of Q1 of 2025. And so I know what it's like to get laid off, and thankfully God again gave me this gift to be able to do this, and he's been funding and aligning and making sure things are happening, but that's not the case for everybody. And I think we have to really sit back and just open our eyes and be like, hey, this is real, guys, and it's going to get realer, and it hasn't even been a year yet. So I think as we recap politically, right, of what has happened, um, we also need to think about the reality of how this is impacting not only just you but others in the community that you're in. And so I know I went on a little rant there, and I apologize. I'll get back into it. But I just kind of wanted to say that was on my heart, to be honest. But yeah, I think, in, like I mentioned in episode 14 with my friend Chris Bruce, he talked about the 90 million voters who did not vote, right? Or who did not participate in voting. And so that's a real representation of the political tone that we're in, right? And how we are shifting no longer into a democracy and into a dictatorship or into autocracy. And I think our biggest thing as Americans is that we have a democratic state, right? Is that we are able to have the freedom of speech and have the freedom to do the things that we do, right? And to be able to see that shifting in real time, I think is really, for me, I think, a wake-up call. I also think because of the recent local elections that happened in this election on November 4th, that I think we're in a tug of war, right? Where we're like, no, we want democracy. We don't want to be in a dictatorship. We don't want to be, you know, in a political space where we have a monarchy, or we have one ruler, or we have a king, right? That was the whole reason why America was created, because we no longer wanted to be under the rule of a monarchy, or under one king, or under one ruler. And so for us to feel like to be regressing to that, and I know some people may think that's a little dramatic, but I think that's the reality of where we are. And so I think as we are looking at the state of the democracy that we are going into 2026, right? We have to acknowledge again the growing centralization of executive power, and recognize, and even I would even say, ask yourself, is that what you want? Is that what you think the American dream is? Is that what you signed up for when you voted for who you voted for, right? I think we have to really start critiquing ourselves and our decisions when we're having these conversations, right? And I know that may be a lot for some people, but having those real life decisions and thoughts and conversations is actually going to help us get to where I think we want to be, which is, again, in a democracy, in a state where we have the freedom to express ourselves, where we have the freedom of press, the freedom of speech, the freedom to protest peacefully, right? And be the American state and country that we claim to be. And so I think that's something where we have to really take time to acknowledge. And I think this is a great time to do while we're in the holiday season, while things are starting to slow down for everybody. Definitely take time to really just sit back and be like, okay, I voted for this person. Is this where I want to be? Right? Where we are starting to see, again, a centralization of executive power across states. I think also, too, something that we're noticing is the erosion of trust in traditional institutions, right? And I think the American people has lost trust in not only in our government, but also I would say not. Let me say this. I think that I think a lot of people have lost trust within the federal government, but they also are starting to lose trust within the local and state government as well. And I always say state and local government is where it's really going to impact your community, right? Where it's really going to hit you. And I think, when you erode those traditional institutions like the Department of Education, the Department of Health, um, certain agencies or federal agencies, FBI, CIA. I think we start to again forget why some of these why some of these institutions were put into place. I mean, we just came out of a global pandemic, right, in 2020, 5 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long, and that almost took us out. You know what I mean? Like that really almost took us out, and thank God we had the CDC. Thank God we had these institutions put into place that can be able to help us figure out and navigate those spaces where it was uncertain. We had a multitude of people dying at a high rate that we haven't seen in a long time. And it was globally. It wasn't just centralized to America, it was everywhere. And so, I think it's one of those things where it's like when you dismantle and erode the trust of those institutions because of what some people are saying to say, I think, again, it doesn't say you have a thought of your own. It doesn't say that you are trusting in what you actually know to be right. And when I think we have people who are following a person or a leader, no matter who that leader in person is, blindly and haphazardly, I think that becomes dangerous because then I feel like we become like this symbiotic, I don't know, it's like one of those like symbiotic type of, I don't know, it's like a sci-fi thing. But we definitely become cloned into thinking like a one-minded identity. And again, that's just not how we were founded, and that's not what the whole state of our democracy is based on. And I would also say just, a recap of just the increased polarization of the political sides. I mean, it's of the major parties. It has been daunting. It has been exhausting to literally see how polarized we are in this time. I mean, no one wants to work with each other. Nobody wants to get anything done. And we're in this time where it's like we arguing for what? Because one person says they're a Democrat, one person says they're a Republican, one person says they're independent. It's starting to make me think I'm agreeing with Chris, of like, I would love to just see how it would look if we didn't have a party system and we just actually listened to what the policies of what people said they wanted to do and voted based on that. I mean, honestly, I think when we're so hyped and focused on the wrong things that we're not even no longer listening to what that person is saying because like, oh, I don't vote this way, I don't vote that way. I'm like, but if they're saying something that actually could benefit you, then and granted, that's a double-edged sword, right? But I just see this increased polarization is not is the reason why we literally had a government shutdown for 40 days. I know one people want to blame one side or one side or the other, but at the end of the day, there's a both supposed to work with each other and they were unwilling. And we had to suffer, the people had to suffer 40 days, communities had to suffer. But I will say there's an upside to that. I think because of that, we're seeing an increase in community support. And we're seeing an increase in help in how people are coming together. I mean, so many people have come up with drives. Businesses have said, kids can eat for free at certain places. I mean, I'm seeing an overwhelming support. And I will say this is that I love my city. I know some people have mixed reviews, but Atlanta has been showing up and showing out when it comes to support. I mean, I'm partnering with an organization called We Feed the Block. They're a new local organization that's helping out communities, specifically in the Adamsville Cascade area, for during this, not only just during this holiday season, but throughout the year. And I'm just so proud to partner with them because they're literally showing you know, us that we need to really stick together and continue to, um, support each other. If the government's not going to do it, if no one else is going to do it, we need to do it as a community. And I just love that we're seeing more organizations like We Feed the Block, more businesses, more radio stations, more people getting out there to really support and uplift each other. Because at the end of the day, is that's how it was when I was growing up. I'm just be honest. Like I said, I grew up in the Metro Atlanta area, but also grew up in the country. So I remember, during the summers, being with my grandmother, and literally, we would take the lunches, because again, y'all remember, a lot of kids do not eat outside of school. So when they don't get that food during school, like a lot of them are going hungry until the next day, or they're struggling. And so during the summer, my grandmother and I, weekly would go to different churches or organizations or even houses and drop off food to make sure people are eating. That was a summer lunch program. Um, and I remember being that 95 Honda and roll them windows down, old school, wasn't automatic. and and that's what I would do during my summers. But I said that to say is that I grew up with community. So it was never a situation or a time where we would ever go hungry, or if someone passed away in the family, people would bring over dishes and, what do you need? That people were there. And I love it. It's sad that we had to experience what we experienced in order to get there. But I hope that as we're seeing this influx of community support across states, not only just in Atlanta, that we are continuing to see that, so that we know if all of this get shut down, or if all of this is just goes to the crapper, we got each other. And I love that we are just supporting each other, we're uplifting each other, we're empowering each other. So I'm shout out, clapping it up to all of the cities, the states that are doing something, the farms that have additional produce are giving back to the community, the grocery stores that are sponsoring and giving back in different ways that they can. I mean, I'm just elated in the amount of support that we're getting, this year. And I would just say, like, keep it up, to be honest. But yes. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up in a cute bow, because I know I've just been talking, y'all, and I get a little passionate and I go on my little rant. So please bear with me, But I will say that going into, 2026, I think that, we talked a little bit about the recap of just, what this administration looked like and this political year looked like in 2025. And granted, I wasn't the only one living it. We all were living it. We all were paying attention. We all were being on notice. So, I don't have to go too deep into that, but I definitely think that people are interested to see, as we're ending out the year in 2025 and we're going into 2026, what is that going to look like? What should we be looking out for? So I got you. Um, and also how, as we are doing a community push and shift, what community should look out for as well for 2026. So I definitely will say the first thing we need to do as a community, before I get into what we should look for in 2026, is we definitely need to strengthen our local presence. Again, I know that when I had my friend Chris Bruce, I'm going to keep mentioning him a lot. He definitely talked about getting onto some type of advocacy groups or organizations, needing to definitely be a part of some type of organization or something. You need to get involved. You need to be able to look and see, how am I going to stay up to date on what's happening in my area. You need to know who your city council members are. You should definitely know who your mayor is, but you need to know who your school board is. Like, all of these things, your commissioners, all of this matters in how it impacts you and your community and how you can even operate. So please make sure you are attending your city council and county commissioner meetings and school board meetings. Make sure you're building relationships with your local elected officials. They are public servants. They are here to help and serve you and your community. So you need to also know, who did I vote for? Yeah, some people just vote Democrat down the ballot. Some people just vote Republican down the ballot. But who did I actually vote for? And am I holding a flame to them to do what I ask them to do, right? If they said they were going to, decrease attacks, or they were going to make sure that more, there weren't any more food deserts, then they need to uphold that promise, right? And you need to make sure they're doing that. And so I definitely say strengthen your local presence as a community, as an individual. I would say the second thing is you also need to monitor your state legislative issues. So make sure you are staying up to date and abreast of what's happening in the statewide of things, right? Same reasoning with your local government. It's the same reasoning for your state government. You know, next year is going to be a big election. It's going to be your governor race. It's going to be your state representative race, your congressional races. So this is the time during the holiday season while you have rest, while you're taking a little nap or taking a little break from eating turkey and dressing and collard greens and black eyed peas, is definitely the time where you need to start looking to figure out, okay, who am I going to vote for? Who am I going to, who do I want to be representing my state? Who do I want and to make sure that they're upholding the values, not only just the values, but the policies that's going to help me and my community, right? So make sure, as people are campaigning for next year, learn and read up on that stuff. And I definitely would say, um, I'll try to make sure I'll be more better at civic duty, and I'm bringing folks on to help you better understand bills and legislation and all that. But the best thing you can always do for yourself is research. So definitely research the candidates. Um, I would say kind of like, lastly is just invest in local and civic infrastructure. Again, going back to joining advocacy groups and organizations, getting involved. Advocacy looks different than everybody. No one's saying you got to do the job that I do, right? But you don't always got to protest either, but there's other ways you can partner, you can join, you can participate, you can engage, so that you're up to date and you know what's happening and that you aren't left out of the dust. So when things are happening, you're not behind the ball, especially if you are one of those voters that were not a part of the 90 million and you did vote last year, you did vote in this year's election, and you are going to vote for next year's election. Please, please make sure you are voting, because your vote does matter. Your voice matters. And if you think it doesn't, I encourage you to think otherwise. If you don't think your voice matters, then I would honestly say drop down in the comments. Why don't you feel like your voice matters? Why don't you think that you have a say so? Why don't you think it makes a difference? It makes a big difference. The only issue is that people don't think that because they're not, again, holding a flame to the people they're voting for. If you vote for somebody, no matter who that is, make sure you are keeping them accountable, holding them accountable for what you said that they were going to do. That's the biggest thing. And once you do that, your voice is always going to matter. When you go to the people, you're attending those local meetings and saying, hey, you said you're going to do this. Why hasn't it getting done? Why is the budget? We need better roads. Our schools are failing. The jail system is this. All the things. You need to make sure you're there so that the people know that you elected, know what your concerns are. So I'll just say, as we kind of close out for our political recap, is that, the biggest thing is awareness, right? I would always say be aware of what's going on. Be aware of what's happening in your city, in your state, in your area, and also just in the world. We live here, right? Whether you are an immigrant, you're on a visa, whether you're a naturalized citizen, a born citizen, whatever your status is, you live here. And when you live here, you are part of the system. You are part of the people. You are part of the country. And so you can't just be a part of it. You got to be engaged with it. You have to be aware of what's going on, because this stuff is real, y'all. And if this year hasn't woke y'all up to see that this stuff is impacting us, I don't know what else gonna wake y'all up. And hopefully nothing else crazy. But I feel like 2025 definitely got people more aware of what's happening in their area. And, I think we need to just really focus on that. I would definitely say, again, make sure you're not only focused and aware when it's time to vote. You should be aware 24/7, year round, whether it's an election year or not. Make sure, again, you are holding people accountable, that they know what's happening and that you know what's happening, so that you are educated on how you can better not only just help people know how to serve you, but also so that you know how to serve others. you can't hold someone accountable when you don't really know what you want out of the situation or what you want from them to do for you. So make sure that you're engaged, you're aligned, I would say properly aligned, and you're active. And just again, I'll I'm a very intentional person. I'm intentional about what I say. Typically, I'm intentional about my actions as well. And so I would really implore and encourage you to be intentional, and to act with intention. And that means staying and being informed, staying and being engaged, and being consistent. That's going to be the strongest defense against any political drift toward authoritarianism. Um, I definitely think that as we're shifting, or we're in this tug of war, I would say, with democracy and the shift into authoritarianism is something where it's like, I feel like we want to stay in our democracy, but we really got to fight for it. And if you want to fight for it, you got to really be engaged. You got to really want it. And so that's going to be my recap for today. I hope this episode was informative. I hope I didn't rant too long or too much for you. But y'all, I thank y'all so much. This has been such an amazing year. I'm thankful for y'all rocking with me and just being a part of the crew. I got to give us a nickname or something. So, I can, season 2, I promise, bigger and better. But definitely excited for next year politically as well. I'm excited to see what the turnout's going to be, but I'm also excited for you. I'm excited to see how are you going to engage and be active next year. Are you going to be a part of protests? Are you going to be going and attending local meetings? Or are you going to run? Right? I mean, I encourage everyone to be engaged. And again, advocacy doesn't have to be a certain way. It looks different for everybody. So again, I thank you. I love you. And again, next time, bye.